Hello everybody, Carol Garrison with Carol's Creative Escape. Thank you so much for joining me tonight. It is time for another Make It Monday. Tonight is Monday, August 19th, and I feel a little crooked here on my camera. I'm going to try to fix that without it falling over. I'm having just a little problem with that lately. Okay, you can see my cat Zelda's joining us in the background. Thank you so much for taking time to join me tonight for another Make It Monday. Hi Kim, thanks for joining me. I am an independent Stampin' Up! Demonstrator from White Bear Lake, Minnesota, and I have been making cards for over 30 years. Hi Anna, thanks for joining. And I am, my goal I guess in making my cards is two things. One is to make sure that I'm spreading joy one card at a time. And then the other thing that I love to do is help people find their own inside creativity. Sometimes things happen in life that cause some of that to be a little squashed in our world, and having somebody show you how to do things and produce beautiful things and build your confidence is also another way that I can spread that joy, kind of one card at a time as well. So tonight I am sharing with you a stunning shadow block technique that I found courtesy of a demonstrator by the name of, I just want to make sure I get it right, Tina Zink. And this is based off of a quilt pattern, and it's kind of funny because my last live video last week was also sort of going after a quilt pattern. I am not a quilter. I've done a couple things, but it's not something that brings me a lot of joy, but I think it's kind of interesting that I am doing this in my cards. So don't hesitate to try something. Maybe you wouldn't do it in the real world, in the real style, but maybe if you do kind of a faux technique, you may find it's something that speaks to you. I hope everybody had a great week. I basically last week was just busy at work, and I did participate in a training event with a group I volunteer with, so that was kind of a change in my pace last week. And then got to spend the weekend with family, and that's always a lot of fun to be able to do that too. So I think I am just going to flip my card over, or my camera over rather. And what I'm sharing with you tonight is going to be some designer series paper that is available in our new, I always call it the wrong thing, the mini catalog that is for September to December. And I am just double checking the dates to make sure that I get that right. You can start ordering from this catalog September 4th. I am not able to show you the inside of it yet, but come September 4th, I'll be able to do that. And you'll be able to order from this catalog through January 6th. So it's filled with a lot of really pretty stamp sets. A lot of the Halloween stuff, which is normally in this catalog, I'm going to start flipping things around here, is now being shared with, shared with you through the online exclusives. And the intent for that was to make sure that we were getting some of that type of stuff out a little bit sooner for people, and giving them time to work on it, especially if we ran into some low inventory status on some of that. Bear with me here a minute. I forgot to turn my iPad on to be able to make sure I was in the right world here. I'm going to do that real quick. There we go. And I am in the right world, but I'm a little crooked. So we're going to start taking some steps to fix that. I'm not surprised because I kind of went a little rogue when I was putting stuff in. We're going to leave it just like that. Let me grab a little bit more light here. And I think we're good to go. Anyhow, this paper, it's another one of those scenery papers. And if you remember in years past, our fall stuff typically tends to sell out pretty quick. So I am going to suggest, if this is the kind of paper that speaks to you and it's something that you want, make sure you order it right away, just because it is a seasonal paper and there isn't a lot of fallish fall stuff. There's a couple, but to me this is just the prettiest. So this particular designer series paper is called Splendid Autumn, and you'll recognize kind of the scenes as typical of some of the things that we do, all fall tones. It is 48 pieces of 6x6 paper, And the colors in this paper are the Azure Afternoon, Balmy Blue, Cajun Craze, Cherry Cobbler, Crushed Curry, Fresh Freesia, Garden Green, Moody Mauve, Mossy Meadow, Old Olive, Pumpkin Pie, and Wild Wheat. So a lot of the regal and darker toned colors for the most part. This beautiful sunflower, Black-Eyed Susan type flower. Another little fall, I think it's just a walking path, but I think you could also, if you thought, maybe a little creek running through there. Early sunrise looking out over a marsh. And just kind of another scenery with like wheat or wild seagrasses. To me, this looks more like a sunset because it's got more of the purple colors in it. Little creek here reflecting that, and out in a field. This is another, is this a duplicate? Nope, it's similar to that, but it's just got the trees on the one side, again with that walking path or possibly a creek going up into a pond here. This pretty one with the fresh freesia flowers in it. And here's a real nice, this definitely sunset or even kind of a little bit stormy, looking over the greens, and then a walking path in the shadows with a little bit of sun flickering through. That color kind of reminds me of the color sumacs will turn into. And here's one, I think kind of like Queen Anne's lace a little bit, with some pretty snapdragon-y type flowers popping up in there. And then, again, just a little scene with maybe like cotton had the balls of cotton, or the end of a flower, sort of, when you get the pods more, is what that one looks like to me. And then the back sides of all these are great too, because they're all going to be just solid colors. We've got a crushed curry, the wheat, Old Olive, Fresh Freesia, Balmy Blue. I think I would call that Balmy Blue, darker tone of Balmy Blue, but let me just see. Yeah, I think that's still going to be more on the Balmy Blue side in there with a little bit of Fresh Freesia. Mossy Meadow, another Fresh Freesia, but of course these are going to go with lots of different colors. This kind of looks Cajun Craze to me. And Cherry Cobbler and Garden Green, and then this would be the Wild Wheat. So you can, nope, that wouldn't be the Wild Wheat. I would call that one, oh, probably Wild Wheat, but I almost would call that the, I don't know what color I'd call it, copper clay even maybe might go with that one a little bit. So lots of just different color tones that you can work with. For background pieces of paper, and these would be great too to run through a 3D embossing folder. So that is the paper that is featured, and then I am also going to be using the dies in the Happiest Little Things dies. And if you don't have these yet, I would really encourage you. They're an online exclusive, and it is simply 2 dies for cutting out small sentiments. This one will leave a little bit of a stitch and has little, I don't know, ruffles or zigzags at the end. Hopefully you can see that if I hold it up here. So that's kind of cool, and that's on both ends. And then this one is going to do, of course, the type of banner cut, but it also has the stitch marks that are going to show up too at the end of the dies. So fun little dies, just a quick little 2 die set, not horribly expensive, and great for cutting out sentiments or even using behind sentiments. So think about getting something like that. And again, they're called the Happiest Little Things dies. So this card that I'm going to show you, it is called the Quilted Block Technique, and this is what it looks like. I've used Cajun Craze and having a mental block, Crushed Curry for my colors, along with beige, the new basic beige color that we have. for my sentiment, and I use that basic beige on the inside of my card along with some Cajun Craze ink to stamp the happy birthday, have a blessed day sentiments. Now, one thing that I saw in the directions is you do need to take your time. And I will agree with that because sometimes it's not something I'm very good at. But it just creates a more stunning card if you are very consistent in your placement on the paper. I got off a little bit on this one, and I think I had one down here that's mostly covered that was a little bit off too. The card still works. You don't need to throw it away, but if you're one that likes things really precise, make sure that you take time to get everything lined up. Very easy card to make. It does involve just a teeny bit of cutting. So let me quick give you the measurements and a couple tips that I learned along the way. So first, you're going to start with a piece of cardstock that's 5.5 by 8.5. I've scored it at 4 1/4. For the inside of my card, I'm using a piece of basic beige, and it measures 3 3/4 by 5. A little bit smaller than what I put normally on the inside. And I will tell you honestly, I had a really rough cut at the 4-inch mark. So I just cut off another 1/4 inch all the way around to smooth those edges off. No mistakes, just a chance to change your layout a little bit. I am then going to use a piece of that basic beige on the front. This measures 4 by 5 1/4. And then I've got 12 pieces of copper clay that measure 1 inch by 1 inch. And with that, I've got 12 pieces of designer series paper. Now I am using this sheet of designer series paper. So when you're looking at this, you've got to kind of figure out where you're going to get some color. I didn't want to use this corner because it wasn't going to give me an awful lot of the flowers. It was going to give me more blue than I wanted. And I didn't want to use this corner because it's just a little bit darker than I wanted. I could have used this corner, but I opted for this corner only because I felt like it picked up a little bit of the blue purpley tones. So it just added a little bit to the card. You can do whatever you want. So then you need to cut, I found it actually easier to cut a 3 by 4 inch piece of paper because you're making in the end 12 1-inch squares. Now where I didn't do it right, I thought I was, what I didn't do right on this card is when I was stacking them up, I didn't always stack them in the same order. So when I went to put them together, because it's got to go together like a puzzle so that all the pieces match, it was a little challenging to do that just because, again, I didn't probably slow down enough. So this time as I was cutting the pieces, I cheated and I've numbered them. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. This side isn't going to show. Just took a pencil and did a little writing of the numbers, and that way I'm not going to have to spend a whole lot of time trying to figure out how this pattern goes together. So that's a little tip that I've got. And then secondly, what I would do is before you start gluing and stuff, actually flip all these pieces over and make sure that they line up. And here's an example where if I put it this way, that is really not how it lines up. So I need to flip and twist it around just a little bit. This piece is probably the one that's not right. Okay, we know those two go together. So I'm guessing this one, it goes like that. And that way, when you lay it all out, the pieces are going to look well together. And now, see, we're going to stumble a little bit. So even doing that, I may not have laid all the pieces down correctly initially. It's going to be fine. We'll go like that. And we'll go like that. And I just recommend going through this process just so that everything in the end is lined up. It does help when there's a little bit of, oh, see? I wonder if I didn't have these together right. This is the hard part. That definitely does not go there. So the numbering will help. Please don't be afraid of doing this layout just because I'm struggling. I think when you get it all figured out, you'll come up with your own system and ensure that your pieces are all laid out correctly too. Now it's just a little embarrassing because it's not working. So the next thing that you can do when you start having struggles is, I know I cut it out of this corner. So in looking at my piece of paper, I can tell that this set of leaves belongs right here. And so all that tells me, now that I just move those too, arg. That goes like that. So I know that this piece goes right here and it looks like this. So it's actually going to sit right here. The next piece over is going to be this one. And that goes somewhere. I think it's actually right here. So if I set it like that, it's worth it. Trust me. It goes like that. And then this piece is going to go like that. Voila. We've got that all put together. And then of course these pieces will match up just like I had them. Whew. So I do recommend laying them out so that you've got it to work with. I am going to slide those up, possibly off camera just a little bit, but keep them in the order so that I can easily start the next step, which is just applying the adhesive here. Excuse me, I just had to grab a little bit of water. All right, so the next thing that I'm going to do is take these 1x1 pieces of paper and my silicone mat, which has been getting a bit of a workout lately. And you could use any color that you want for the background. I just liked, even though pecan pie isn't part of the color group, I did like how these colors flowed together. I think the darker you use for the shadow block, the better. A lot of the cards that I saw had black, which made a pretty stunning statement. But honestly, I really wasn't sure that black was going to look right with this because there's a lot of pieces that could be different colors. So I chose to use this color. You're welcome to use any color that you want. And then I did find using my Tombow liquid glue worked a little bit better than just putting adhesive on. And I kind of just put a blob on the part that I knew would be on this paper and then focused as best I could to make sure I had even sides and corners and that it's on straight. And you just start doing this and repeat the process. If you hear any crashes, I've got a cat that apparently has picked up a bad case of the zoomies and is flying through my house and up and down the stairs. So anyhow, you're just going to keep doing this. The hardest part, honestly, is getting it laid out in the right order for the squares, as you could tell. The rest of it, it takes a little bit of time and patience to do this. But really, once you get a rhythm going, it isn't a problem. I would be concerned about mass producing this card in terms of being able to cut all of your pieces. Unless you are really, really careful about numbering them and how you laid them out. I think it might get a little frustrating, but certainly is a pretty easy one to do one card at a time, and you could easily cut and paste, cut and paste, cut and paste. And then you just want to make sure that each time you add one of these squares that you are putting them on the right direction as well, because obviously when we start to assemble the card, we do want everything going the same direction. Now I'm choosing to put my block on the bottom and the left side. I liked how it looked on the bottom, and I am left-handed, so I tend to gravitate that way. You could certainly put it so that your block went like this, if that is something that pleased you. You also are not limited to doing 1-inch squares on your, let's see, I shouldn't have been talking. It goes like that. You're not limited to doing 1-inch squares. You could do bigger, you could do circles and create the shadow too. I think quilting tends to be more on the sharper edges, which is why I'm using squares, but you can use your imagination. You could even have a couple different sizes as part of your quilt pattern. Totally up to you. I'm just letting you know that you're not limited to just doing this one by one. You could make your squares bigger and do fewer squares on the quilt. You might have to do just a little bit of figuring out in terms of sizing and spacing and that sort of thing. But really, there's no limits to what you can do. When I made my first card, I definitely had music playing, and I would encourage that as well, because you do have to kind of focus, so it's not necessarily the easiest card to carry on a conversation with. That goes like that. And it doesn't hurt to check partway through just to make sure if you're questioning it, it's easier to fix it before you've glued it down than after you've glued it down. All right, so there I've got my pieces together. Now, on this card, I did use the Gently Falling 3D embossing folder just to add a little texture and depth behind the card. I do like how that looks, and so I'm going to quick run this piece through. I will be right back. Okay, so the Gently Falling folder, this is one that we had last year. I want to say it was in an annual catalog, but I can't give you a 100% on that. This is now available as an online exclusive, and it's that pretty one that's got all the leaves that are kind of gently falling down from the sky. So if you missed out on it last year, now is your chance to get it. All right, so the next step that I took was then transferring this over to my card front. And again, I actually kind of laid things out a little bit to get a sense of my spacing in the order that I want it. I do think the lighter this layer is, the more the squares are going to pop as well. I did Cajun Crage, which is fine. I did, crushed curry, which is fine because the Cajun Craze is quite dark in and of itself. But lighter, the ones where they use black as that backing, a lot of them had just basic white, and it made for a very stunning card. So keep that in mind. And now I'm just going to start gluing these on. Again, I am using my Tombow because it gives me a little chance to move stuff around. And again, I'm just looking for even spacing. And I actually am going to start by doing, whoops. I dropped it on the floor. And thankfully, it landed glue side up because otherwise it would have been on my carpet. That could have been fun to clean up. And just to get some spacing in correctly, I'm doing the top and the bottom corner. And then I can lay that without gluing it. Place that one down with some spacing. And this one with a little bit of spacing. And it looks a little uneven to me, so one of the things I'm going to do is slide this one up just a little bit. And the nice thing about using the Tombow is it doesn't dry right away, so it does give you some movement. I'll pull that one up just a little bit, and I'm going to pull this one down. And again, I'll pull that one down. Once you get the first row in, it's pretty easy to get the others into the right space, but that just helps being able to move it a tiny bit. So next, I put this on wrong. Not a big deal. It could be, but it's not going to be. I'm just going to use this side because it is going to show. And again, I'm going to put a little Tombow glue on the back, verify the direction it should have gone, and put it on. Oops. And again, don't do like I do. Always use your silicone mat for stuff like this. Otherwise, you end up getting it on your work surface, and then you get it on your projects, and everybody's unhappy. All right, now we got that one going the right way. Again, I'm going to kind of put this one in its spot, and then I can stick this one in and get a pretty good idea on spacing and really make sure you've got it level. So to me, this is the part where patience and taking your time for accuracy is important, is at this step. And then we're going to do that. And now I can just kind of keep adding in whatever order you want to. You can go vertical or horizontal. It's whatever works best for you. And I'm really focusing more on the square of cardstock in terms of trying to keep it lined up than I am on the designer series paper, just because it's a more solid piece for me to work with. So yes, this card is a little time consuming to make, but I think the wow factor, it makes it worth it. And I've shown you all the mistakes you can make or the challenges you might run into. So hopefully by the time you guys are doing it, you're not even going to have to do some of what I've already done in terms of being challenged by it. So remember, I'm not a quilter, I'm a card maker, but I can make quilts and enjoy the looks of quilts through my cards. Okay, so now we've got those all put together. Now, for my sentiment, I am using the Happy Birthday greeting that comes from the Something Fancy stamp set. And I did that because I just wanted something simple on the front. This paper's so pretty, I didn't want to cover a lot of it up. But I do need some help if you have a preference. I've stamped the Happy Birthday sentiment in 3 different colors. I've got Balmy Blue, this is Misty Moonlight, and this color is Mossy Meadow. Do you have any preferences on which color I use? Looks like I might have frozen up too. Yikes. We'll catch up. There we go. I think I just stopped it. So if you have any preferences on which color I use, let me know. Otherwise, I am just going to select a color, and I actually kind of like the Mossy Meadow, or excuse me, the Misty Moonlight, only because it pulls out some of that blue color. But if I do Mossy Meadow, it is going to pull out that green and it will complement my card base. So I think that's the direction I'm going to head. The other thing that I did was cut a piece of ribbon, which is now nowhere to be found, but it is from the center stripe ribbon. And again, this is the pecan pie, so that's part of the reason I did that ribbon. And I'm just cutting a chunk like that. I can't even tell you how long it is. And mostly what I'm looking for is to make a little kind of ribbon to go behind here, perhaps at an angle, just to decorate this a little bit further. And as I look at that, I think, look, I don't like it. That might be just a little bit too much. So we're not going to use the ribbon. Instead, we're going to grab, I hope, some mini dimensionals from up here. Yep, I got them in black. That'll work. And I'm just going to put those behind my sentiment on my, oops, I'm going to use 3 of these just so that it is supported in the middle. And we'll get rid of those. And then I'm just going to pop this up kind of right here at the base of my card with the happy birthday. And then for the inside of my card, I am using the I didn't forget your birthday. I'm just stretching the celebration. And I didn't stamp this ahead of time, mostly because I wasn't sure what color I was going to be using on the front initially. And so we're going to do a little bit of stamping with the sentiment. And there we go. I didn't forget your birthday. I'm just stretching out the celebration. I try very hard to get my cards out on time, and I fail a lot of times getting my cards out on time. One would think I could do it as a card maker, but it really is a challenge some days. And so this, I'm just going to add some adhesive and put this on the inside of my card. Now, normally when I do stamp sentiments for the inside of my card or on any of my pieces, I do like to do them first so that I'm sure they're dry before I'm flipping them over and putting tape and stuff on them. Most of the inks will dry pretty fast. The one I notice I have the most troubles with is Night of Navy. So it's not a big deal if I can't do that. Now, this one I am, you could put this base layer on right here with dimensionals. I'm choosing not to do that because I don't want the card to get too thick or bulky to be able to do anything. And so I'm just going to add my adhesive to the back of this. Every once in a while that happens. A little piece of paper got caught up in my tape runner. Not a big deal. It's all covered. Nobody's going to see it. Not a reason to start over. Sometimes that'll happen. There we go. And then I'm just going to center this on the front. And remember, if you look at opposite corners, if they're even, then the rest of the card should go down here pretty evenly too. And I still feel like the front of this needs a little something, but I'm not quite sure what it is. Let me see where I flung my little bow here. I wonder what would happen if we just did a faux bow, or kind of tied it just in a knot and made it much smaller than what it was. Yep, that adds just a little bit without overpowering. Let me get a glue dot. This is a thicker ribbon, so I think I'm actually going to grab two glue dots, and we'll just put it right there And then that gives us a little something on the front of the card without overpowering it. And there you go. So here it is, kind of using Cajun Craze and crushed curry. Very much a fall one. Here could be kind of an early fall with a sunflower design, using Mossy Meadow and the pecan pie for my shadow blocks. I am going to try this with some brighter colored paper and black as my blocks, because I think that's going to look pretty stunning. But I won't make you sit and watch through that tonight. It would take us way too long to get all of that done. So enjoy, give it a try. Truly, it's not as hard as I made it tonight. Just be sure that you number these pieces and are very consistent in how you lay them out and flip them in the stuff so you've got the same direction as you're cutting them. Take care, everybody. Have a great night, and we will see you next week. Bye-bye.